All right, so far we've been focusing primarily on LFO type devices, low frequency oscillators, which generate a cyclical waveform that can modulate or change the value of some other parameter. Now, that's not the only kind of modulator that there is. We're going to check out something that operates somewhat like an LFO, but is a little bit different. This device is part of the K-device modulator pack that we just looked at. So let me go back to the packs area in my browser. And we're going to check out a device called EXT3. I'm going to go to track 1, and on track 1 here, I have a Max for Live device called Monosequencer, and I'm using this to generate notes that are creating a drum pattern. So I think maybe on this track, there might be some fun things I can do with the drum sounds that I have here using this particular modulator. So let me collapse some of this stuff, and I'm going to take EXT3. This is an audio device, so it goes at the end of our instruments, and here it is. Now, what we see are a series of vertical columns. They're big blocks. Ultimately, what these are steps. Each step has a certain value, and once we reach a certain step, that value is then sent to whatever we're trying to modulate. So let's listen to what's on track 1 first. There's a series of drum sounds here. This is an 808 core kit, one of the default kits in Ableton Live. And I think I want to do something different with one of these sounds. Maybe, I don't know, maybe changing the pitch of the kick drum or something. Let's just see what's available to us. So I have a kick drum here. There's a little hi-hat pattern here as well. And it might be interesting to play around with the pitch of this hi-hat. I think what I'd like to do is possibly change the pitch, modulate the pitch using the EXT3 device. So let's just get a feel for what that sounds like as I play the pattern. So that could be a fun little thing to add some character to our drum beat. So if that's what I want to do, let me go ahead and scroll over so I can see the EXT3 device, which is right here. Now again, since this is another one of the K devices, we just looked at one previously, the way that we map these to something we want to modulate is the same. We can see at the top right here it says none, and there's something that looks like a little target. Once we click on this, we can now click on the parameter that we want to modulate. So in this case, it's going to be this transp, short for transpose. I click it, and now we can see it's set to plus 48, which is going to be really, really high. And it's so high, I don't even hear the sound. Now, the reason it's doing this is because the value that this parameter receives is based on each step here. Right now, each one of these steps is at the maximum value. Let's go ahead and just start to click on these to change the values, and we can do something kind of like that. All right, so now when I play this, okay, I have some very different values, and we see they're not changing smoothly. They're basically jumping from one value to the next because these work like individual steps. Now, if we look below this, we have a number of different parameters that we can play with to change the length of each step, to change the order of the steps, and also to change whether or not these actually are steps or not. For example, if I go down to the bottom here, we see it says steps, and under that it says 16. So that's how many steps that we have. We have palette here, and we can determine as we're clicking, do we get something that looks like a rectangle, or do we get an upward slope, like that, or do we get a downward slope, like this? So this allows us to change the shape of these so that we're not just jumping from one value to the other, but we can also smoothly ramp up and ramp down. Let's check out this. So I can see for some of these parameters here, we're smoothly going from one value to the other. Now, let's say that maybe I just want this to be a bit more random. If that's the case, I can also do that. Down here, we have some buttons where I can just click and I can create some different randomized stepped patterns. So you see, in some ways it's similar to an LFO because we're constantly looping through these steps, but it's a bit different because instead of having a predetermined shape, we can essentially create our own shape. Now I think, let's try maybe something kind of like this, all right? Now, one of the main issues that I'm having is that I like what's happening in terms of jumping from the different values, but again, the range is just too wide, all right? I don't want to go all the way to the lowest value here, which is minus 48 semitones. I also don't want to go to the highest value, which is plus 48. Thankfully, we have a range parameter here, and I'm just going to make the range a bit more narrow so we don't go up quite as high or quite as low. Okay, I have much more control there, and I'm quite pleased with that. So now let me go ahead and unsolo the hi-hat so I can hear it with the drums. All right, so as you can see, it's a very nice way to add some character and modulation to a certain parameter. If you don't specifically want the sound of an LFO, if you want more control over the individual values in your steps, using the EXT3 modulator from K Devices is a great choice.